Hey everyone, super excited today. I have the founder of BlockBar here today, Sam Falik, and also a team ambassador from there as well, Gavin. I'm gonna not butcher them. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, tell me a little bit about the project they're working on. So first and foremost, I'm super excited about this vertical. I got briefly introduced to it through the NFT space, and I purchased a BlockBar NFT myself. Sam, can you tell us a little bit about how you found the company, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, my name is Sam Falik. I'm one of the co-founders of BlockBar, and I actually co-founded the company alongside my cousin. So during COVID, I flew out to Panama to go visit him, and I was trying to explain to him the world of NFTs. And Joe, I'm sure you understand what I mean, but the second I even tried to explain it, he looked at me like I had three heads. Yeah. And then when I tried to explain it to his dad, also I bumped into similar obstacles, and that's what really got us thinking. Where it was, there's this entire demographic of people who are interested in NFTs, but there's also these huge demographic of people who are used to buying traditional e-commerce, who can't wrap their head around NFTs. So our goal from the beginning was to sell NFTs to a consumer base that understood luxury products. So we wanted to sell NFTs directly from luxury brands. And our background is in the duty-free industry. So we had a lot of relative contacts within the spirits industry, the fragrance industry, and the fashion industry. And as we were kind of brainstorming what different sectors we could potentially introduce NFTs into, we wanted to solve an actual problem in the industry, meaning we felt that a lot of brands were getting into NFTs for the wrong reasons and just doing it as sort of a marketing campaign. So we were trying to ask ourselves, if we're going to launch an NFT, what is the purpose behind the NFT? And Gavin can tell you all of the issues that the wine and spirits industry suffers today, both from the brand side and just as a collector side. So for us, that's when the light bulb really turned on, where we said, okay, we want to sell NFTs directly from luxury brands. We want to solve problems in an industry. We have this background in the wine and spirits industry. And then when we put it all together, that's how we really came up with the idea of BlockBar.
And awesome. for me, Joe, I'm a whiskey collector, whiskey investor. I have a pretty sizable collection. I'm also one of the top whiskey influencers on Instagram. I specialize in collecting luxury whiskey. I went really big in Suntory back in the days when nobody cared about Japanese whiskey. It was just, sitting around. But once I tried the product, I knew something was really special about that. I then diversified into bourbon. I selected a couple of distilleries where I was just like, man, they're just doing something special. And one of the things that I like to say is, whiskey takes time. It has to go in a barrel. It has to be aged. You can't microwave it. It's just like, if you have a time capsule and you have that whiskey, whether it's 10, 15, 20 years old, 25, 50, we have a 50-year-old Kurosawa up today on BlockBar. Like, you can't get that time back. You can't do it again. Well, the pricing in the last 3 years have gone nuts. So hypothetically, if a bottle you used to be able to buy all day long for $1,000, it's literally now $6,000. Great for my collection, obviously appreciated really well. What's the downside of that happening? Similar to the wine world, you start to get people who fake the bottle, because nobody's actually drank very few people, how about that? I've drank a 50-year-old Kurosawa.
You have, maybe.
But you know what? I've had a 52-year-old Macallan. That's about as high as I've gone. I've had a 70-year-old Scotch from another distillery. But that moment means that somebody who's for lack of better words, a predator, could get hold of that bottle because nobody really wanted it. They sell empty bottles on eBay. They could fill it with liquid that looked the same, kind of like that whole Netflix show about the wine guy. Same shit happens in the whiskey world, which then for me is really dangerous. Because imagine I go buy that bottle and I think what I'm getting, and then I come time to when my investment strategy is over, and I go and I find out it's fake. What BlockBar is doing that I love from day one is, number one, direct from distillery. Less hands touch it, less problems. Number two, I have a collection of over 600 bottles. That requires a tremendous amount of storage. BlockBar stores the bottles in Singapore until you're ready to get the bottles. They also basically are sourcing, like Sam said, luxury spirits. And that market as an alternative investment strategy for savvy investors is just insane and still going, because the demand from Asian markets, the demand from Europe, bourbon more in America is off the charts. I mean, we did a unique 6-liter Buffalo Trace that each bottle got north of $50,000 for. So just to show you the money that's available, what I like tying this all together is there's so much money sitting in crypto, and I don't care what the state of the crypto is right now. If Ethereum's low, it doesn't matter. It's a currency that people have money in and they're looking to spend, and they appreciate the good things in life.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you've had a history of investment in whiskeys and one of the biggest collectors in the space. How did you see NFTs as an advent into the space? Was it a natural kind of fit, or something that you see that's going to be pretty prolific in the long run, or something that, and it seems interesting, let me get involved for right now?
Yeah, I'm not messing around. It's the future. Where else can I get? So here's a situation. I'll give you a situation. I want to go buy a luxury whiskey. I then have to basically kiss ass to that store like nobody's business to maybe get the opportunity to buy the bottle for way over what I actually should be paying for it, because the store, in order to get that bottle, had to buy from the distributor who said, oh, to get that bottle, I want you to buy all this junk champagne, all this junk gin, all this junk vodka. And the guy's like, dude, like, I'll buy it all to get that one bottle. So he can't even sell it at manufacturer's suggested retail. And who loses out on that? The distillery, because they sold the bottle to the distributor at normal pricing. They can go direct now through BlockBar. Everybody wins. I feel safe. My bottle is being stored. My bottle is authentic. I could get the bottle. I don't have a chance to get it at the store because there's 50 other guys who've already been taking the liquor store guy out for dinner and bribing him over the last year to get that bottle. This is a clean system.
Yeah,
that's what excited me the most. I'm also a crypto investor. I also see the future. I'm also not 21 anymore. So I remember in the late 90s when PayPal came around and everybody said, oh God, no, I would never use that. Who doesn't have a PayPal or Venmo account in the world right now? This is just the beginning. And what I like to call it is, this is that first pair of Air Jordans. Remember when Air Jordans came out and they sat on the shelf? Yeah. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
At first, this is that first opportunity, and I'm all about being involved in the opportunity.
That's amazing. Yeah, this to me is down a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole. So personally, I've been investing for a while, just broad index funds, very boring stuff. And then of course, crypto, just like you. And then the new asset class, which I see as an asset class, NFTs. And luckily I've done very well within the NFT space, which then led me to BlockBar, as my friends referred me to it. And I just went down another rabbit hole, seeing a new asset class within an asset class. So it's a very interesting space, and I'm probably not your target demographic, but the newer generation, I'm a little bit older. I'm not the new generation.
But you are, Joe. Joe, you're an investor. You're an investor, so you are the demographic.
Right. So I mean, in terms of buying an entire bottle for $75,000, I'm not there quite yet. But it is interesting for me as an investor overall, from traditional to crypto to NFTs to now high-end luxury spirit brands, to dive into that rabbit hole a little bit, see the indexes that follow it. Because alternative asset classes, I saw on CNBC, if they are correct, is a required diversification in portfolio if you may nowadays. Things like Masterworks that you guys heard about. So what do you see? What's the long-term goals of the company? I know that there's a lot of movement in the space, right? Are you guys going to get into fractionalization? What's some of the ideas of just the asset itself? Do you see this? Because this is a very small sample size is what I'm saying. There's a 10-year sample size, or maybe longer. You guys educate me. I could be completely asking the wrong questions there.
Look, there's guys that have been doing this since the late 80s. I know guys in Germany that have Scotch collections and Armagnac collections that you would never believe that are worth tens of millions of dollars. So it's been around, it just hasn't been spoken about. And when I first started doing it a whopping 7 years ago, nobody was really doing it. And I was the first guy to go on Instagram and start talking about it. And that's how I grew in fame, because people were like, how the hell did he get that? International networks. BlockBar just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, so touching on Gavin said and what you said, I think it leads us to the perfect nexus of what I was trying to bring up next, where Gavin's right. It's very difficult to even get access to a lot of these products. And you yourself, Joe, you would be a target consumer for BlockBar, because right now, when you think of the typical person who's collecting premium spirits or premium wine, you're usually thinking of like a 40-plus-year-old guy. Usually younger people don't have access or don't have means to these other premium collections. And it's almost unfair because, like Gavin is saying, it's such a great investment, but regular people don't necessarily have access to it unless you either know about it or you have to go through the right channels to actually get it. So that's why, the Karazawa, it's an amazing drop, but we also have stuff at lower price points, but we still stick to premium. And then just talking about the industry as a whole, the market for premium wine and spirits is expected to grow to 1.4 trillion by 2027. It's growing at a 4.9% CAGR.
Wow.
And then the fastest growing category within spirits is high end and super premium, is premium and super premium, which is typically categorized around $200. And what's really driving this is the growth of the global, is the global young adult demographic, because there's this surge in disposable income and there's this rise in consumer demand for premium and super premium products. And a lot of people our age, Joe, I don't know if you and I are about the same age, but whenever you're buying something like this, you want to know that it's authentic and you want that transparency. You want to deal directly with the brand. And that's something that's been missing for the industry for a long time. And the industry has been succeeding in spite of all of these things. So like Gavin is saying, this is really a win-win all around. We're trying to make it easier for the distilleries. We're trying to make access better for consumers, the experience better for consumers, and provide a level of authenticity and transparency that, prior to this whole NFT crypto boom, just wasn't really available before.
Yeah.
And Joe, I want to add one thing quickly on Sam's note here. I'm sure you've walked into a liquor store before, and they either have a glass case or they have a top shelf. And the top shelf was meant as like, oh, you can't buy that. Look at these prices. Now, the last 3 years, money's no object. It doesn't matter what they put. There is no more top shelf. It's crap up there. So people are spending to jump into this class because of the returns. If you're patient to sit, once again, going back to BlockBar, I buy my bottles, I leave it up there. I get offers all day long. I mean, I don't know if you saw the news yesterday with Ardbeg, how they 2 days ago, how they, they sold this rare cask for, a couple $1 million. All of a sudden I was getting offers on this Ardbeg, these 2 Ardbeg bottles I have sitting on my BlockBar, in my BlockBar collection. So this is just starting. And that's where the excitement and the passion is, because we get to come in on the ground floor. There's many opportunities as a collector, as an investor, where you're like, man, I wish I would have bought more. Right. That situation where you're like, man, this is that situation right now. And we're going to look back in not the next 20 years, probably in the next 3-4 years, once there's more adoption of blockchain and more adoption of crypto, which, like I said, I don't care about the news today. I'm looking at the future. Yeah. So this is an opportunity. That's why I'm in. I'm also have the direct opportunity to buy direct from the distiller. No brainer.
Yeah. And Joe, just touching back to your original question, which was, where we plan on going with this company. So again, the reason we chose wine and spirits was just because we identified a serious issue in the industry. So our objective is to become, the world's first and largest global direct-to-consumer platform for wine and spirits in the world, where, like I keep saying, the access has always been a problem, where even if you did have the means and you did have the education, if you just live in a geographical region where the product can't necessarily be shipped to you, then, you're kind of locked out of purchasing it, and you're locked out of participating in that asset class. So our goal is to dominate the wine and spirits industry, but then we also do view this model as being able to expand it into other different industries. For example, there's other luxury products that you hear about that are great investments and great returns, but some people just don't have access to buy it, meaning it's not necessarily about owning right now. You have to have the access you want to own, and then you have to store it. And like Gavin is saying, what we're trying to do at BlockBar is to democratize the access and make it really about ownership and less about storage. So ownership, we'll transfer the ownership to the consumer immediately. We'll store it for the consumer, and then at any point they can redeem it.
Yeah, that's amazing. You guys got me with the Chinese New Year Glenfiddich, I might add. I'm Chinese, and I'm actually purchasing that for a friend who's getting married. I'll probably have to buy another one for myself.
It's a great present. It's a great present. And people buy wine and spirits all the time as a wedding gift, a birthday gift.
Yes.
When their kids are born. But the problem is, if you actually want to ship that product, it's a nightmare. Everyone thinks that it's easy, but until you actually have to go and ship it, it's a nightmare. Or if you buy a certain product and you want to drink it with your son or daughter when they graduate college, there's no way you're going to be able to store that product for 20 years in the right temperature, at the right place, moving from point A to point B. So this is just a kind of easier way. Like Gavin said, some people don't necessarily have the self-control to not even drink it. So like Gavin said, it's much easier to just own the product. It sits in Singapore. You either can forget about it, can consider reselling it, can gift it to anyone across the entire world, or at any point redeem it for that right special occasion.
Yeah.
But also, the other thing that I like, Joe, sorry, I know, sorry, I'll keep
You're passionate. Go ahead.
Okay, I love the back and forth.
The other thing that I really love about it is you have an asset here. It's real. It's a bottle. It's a liquid. So if you find our world, and let's just say you're the guy at the club who's ordering tequila at the bottle service table, but you come to our network and you see the Patron Director's bottle that you couldn't get. You order that, and somebody comes to your house and you're known as that guy, you're the man. Like, I really look at that and I'm like, you have the opportunity to get stuff that not everybody can get by just being in the know and being part of the network. And that to me is, I mean, just as exciting as the money and everything else that follows. Because look at you, would you have normally bought it, for the Chinese New Year? The fact that you came in and bought the Glenfiddich is a perfect example of why people come into the space. You are in the space, you understand the space, it's something that makes sense to you, and it's a no-brainer, right? You know how to connect to wallets, you know how to do everything. You're like, that's a great thing that I will take. Now, would you have gone to a store to look for that? Probably never. But the fact that we brought it to your home, into your house, into your phone, you did it. That's the win.
And you got me to spend more. I wouldn't, if I went into the store, I wouldn't spend $500. But because I knew it was in a safe space, insured on an NFT and transactable, it doesn't even feel like money. It almost feels like monopoly money online nowadays. And I think that's where all the new generation is. And I purchased it. But you guys,
the difference maker is really that it comes directly from the brands, because you don't have that sort of access or that sort of relationship. And now, for example, if Glenfiddich has another release, they may do something that benefits the previous owners, or the benefits the owners of the Chinese New Year, where that model of CRM was impossible with spirits because of all of the different hands that have to touch it, with the distributors and the wholesalers and the retailers and then the consumers, and then it moves around. So that's really the objective.
That's awesome.
Sam brings up one more point. So we did this drop with Delmore with these 33-year-old casts, and the first 10 people got an experience where they will get to go there and actually taste the cask at Delmore in Scotland. Who else is doing that?
Right.
For the cost of the bottle. But you had to move fast. The first 10 got that. So we're going to keep bringing experiences with liquor and with luxury, and it's going to start to be like, well, hey, it's like the guy at the club who says, hey, only 10 can get in. Want to be in?
Yeah. You guys answered so many questions that I didn't know I had. And to answer a lot of your questions, I think we may or may not, I might be the eldest one here. I'm an 80s baby. So Stranger Things is one of my favorite shows. Another thing is that I'm getting married this year, actually in a few weeks. And to your point, thank you. To your point, I bought 30 bottles of wine. I know nothing about storage, and it's only been 48 hours. And I kid you not, I could show you the bottle. I opened the bottle yesterday, and it tasted a little bit sour and acidic. And I don't have a wine fridge. I don't have the storage space. And that was just a perfect example of me not knowing what I don't know. And now I'm looking to return the 30 bottles because I should have put it in the basement and, in a dry, cool area, but I'm living in an area that's quite humid and hot. And that's just one example of why you hit one of my hot buttons, which is, wow, I don't need to store this. I don't have space. And then I think the next level that I'm trying to get to as an investor, because now I'm in, and I'm giving you a peek into my mind, is that I'm used to broad index funds, right? But with NFTs, I went very individualistic in my investments, which I've never done. I don't pick individual tech stocks. So looking at the Patron, for example, is the reason I found about BlockBar, because my friend El Patron, he's a big Clone X holder. You see these clones in the back. That's his username, is El Patron. And he went and said, oh, I bought a BlockBar tequila, Patron tequila. So I went into I'm like, what are you talking about, NFT tequila? So I went into the rabbit hole of BlockBar, looking at the investment index, which you guys, I think a lot of the industry goes by the Knight Frank Luxury Investment Index. And then now there's a platinum whiskey index that I fell into, and just reading about what moves the market. So I couldn't get myself to push the trigger on tequila because I saw it as a rising asset class within a space. But by this time, I've only done 20 hours of study within a space, not even 20 hours, that's being gracious. But I want to, because Patron's such a big name, and just generically thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? People just slam tequila. They don't savor it like a whiskey or a wine. And I'm curious how, because I look at the return, not in terms of like a quick return. I'm like, oh, 17% a year. That's really good. That's way better than the S&P 500. But how do I fill that gap from, you know what, whiskey and wine is a good investment asset class, but Patron, I have no idea. How are you guys answering that question? Or do you even care about answering that question? Because to your point, Gavin, there is some notoriety to it. That's the reason I have these posters up. I mean, these pictures up, because they're both worth north of $50,000. So, yeah. So how do I want you guys to not sell me in a Patron, but how do I get educated on this? Is BlockBar doing that at all, or you're not really worried about that?
No, it's definitely something that we're worried about. But again, we always urge our consumers to do their own research, just because we're not a financial institution and we don't want to give investment advice. Now, traditionally, based off of the insights we've seen, yes, whiskey and wine have traditionally been the safest and the most secure investments. But there's a bunch of articles that you could find now that rum is an up and coming asset class, and tequila is an up and coming asset class. And in my mind, and this is just my opinion, I think it comes down to the scarcity, where if you compare it to the watches, you know, most of the watches do the same thing, but there's certain watches that have different craftsmanship. And I think that that's what it's coming down to with different wine and spirits brands, that's what they're recognizing. Where, like Gavin said, one of the unique things about wine and spirits is you can't replicate age. You can't replicate the liquid inside. If it's lived for 20 years, you know, that liquid can never be done again. You know, it has to go through different weather conditions and different aging processes and different experiments. So that's why specifically on our platform, when we do a release, it's not just about, you know, the image of the bottle, but we want to give you the whole background on the brand, and we want to give you the whole background on why the brand thinks that this specific product is limited and exclusive. And that's why we deal with limited and exclusive. So sometimes it's about the liquid, sometimes it's about the packaging, sometimes, like Gavin said, it's about the experience. And, you know, different strokes for different folks. Some people like the Lalique bottle, some people like the 50-year-old whiskey. It's just really a matter of preference. But again, what we're trying to do is provide that level of transparency, which consumers didn't necessarily have before. Meaning, if you go to a regular e-commerce platform, or like Gavin said, if you go to a regular liquor store, you see the product, and then that's kind of it. You don't know, you know, where the product is coming from, why this product is special, how old is the product, what region is this product from, who was the master distiller on this, what's the story of the master distiller, where is this brand from? And those are the attention to details that we're trying to add to BlockBar, where, of course, you should do your external research on Patron, but if we have a Patron release, we have a Patron brand page where Patron made that page. So they are telling you exactly what they want to tell you. And then when they go through the product release, they're going to tell you exactly why they think it's limited and it's exclusive.
Got it.
And I'll add something before I got to jump over here, Joe. Sorry. Tequila and rum. So whiskey is known. You've read the Knight Franks. You've seen the studies on whiskey. Cat's out the bag. Now everyone's hunting and everyone's going after it. Tequila and rum, they haven't landed on that at that point yet. So what I'm excited by, like if you look at the Dictador release that we did, of rum. Going back to my original statement, can't recreate these things. You can't make a 20-year-old barrel, you know, show up the next day. These sipping tequilas are no longer shooters. They're sipping because people are chilling now, and whiskey got them in there. So for me, and I'd hate to say myself as a great white, there's blood in the water for tequila and there's rum, and I'm chasing. And I'm grabbing it all and going like, I'll just wait on this. This is my Air Jordan 1s. This is my Air Jordan 1s. I literally think of it all like that because the barrier to entry is lower. It's like me buying Suntory 6-7 years ago when nobody wanted them. Same as in rum, same as in tequila. Do your due diligence. Look at the brands that have passion, commitment. Don't look at the marketing companies. Follow that with your own advice, make your own decisions, and you'll start to see That's going to be the next one they're going to be talking about, those two.
Yeah, and also just to touch upon what Gavin said before, this game is not a get rich quick game. It's not a get rich quick scheme. I always say that this industry is about getting rich slow, and it's really about enjoying the process. And traditionally, like you said, Joe, if you do your research, you'll see that returns are generally there, but it's nothing that anybody can guarantee. But like Gavin is saying, because these liquids and these brands are so difficult to recreate, that's what really provides the value.
And they're once off. They're not going to go redo it again. I mean, Joe, just a little history on my collection. My collection is my kids' college fund. It's an 18-year strategy. I'm 7 years in. Going back to Sam's thing, it's a long play, but it's sure performing at a way higher rate than any of my S&Ps or anything like that. So, and it's exciting. It's passionate because I can actually be involved. There's no fun pulling the trigger and buying a stock. There's a lot of fun pulling the trigger and buying whiskey or a luxury spirit, because you get into it.
And absolutely, and connecting with a community and that wasn't there before. That's something that definitely I wanted to ask you guys about, because you guys were in NFT NYC doing something with Born a Woman, if I believe, right? And I couldn't make it out there. I was so upset, but I saw that you guys were doing that. What's some upcoming in real life events, if you can spill the beans or not, and any further utility? Because like you mentioned, Sam, the utility for the Glenfiddich, and they gave me access to someone else. Another drop is so valuable. But I can imagine you guys have some interesting conversations with brands that you can activate utility in very, very unique ways in this industry like no other. So just curious about what you may have upcoming in terms of those two things.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have an event tomorrow for some of our Patron holders. And again, I think that some of the coolest things that we're able to offer to our community, of course, there's going to be the ability to do exclusive tastings. There's going to be the ability to do distillery visits, early access to future drops, discounts on future drops, and then potential giveaways from the brands. And I think that's one of the exciting things utilizing utilizing NFT technology. But again, it's so early for the brands that the brands are really excited to hear from their community. Meaning there was so little transparency in this industry prior to BlockBar that brands didn't necessarily know who their big consumers were, or they didn't know how to tailor something for their community. And this is a way that's really firing them up. So if there's any recommendations, we always want to hear from the community, and the brands are always listening.
May I suggest BlockBar actually creating a bar? And then I would love to go to that in real life event and purchase some NFTs after tasting. That would be amazing. Did I touch on something? Are you guys going to plan an actual location one day?
No, so we actually did a lot of NFT NYC events where we didn't do exactly what you're doing, which is definitely what the goal is. But we did have a physical BlockBar presence where we were serving some of the spirits from some of the exclusive liquids. But of course, eventually one day, the plan is going to be to have an actual BlockBar where consumers can come in, try exclusive different liquids, and then essentially just scan a QR code, have the product, they own it, and then they could ship it to themselves on demand. So it's almost like a grab and go, asset-backed NFT concept.
That's amazing. Yeah, that more in real life events. I find personally that as I'm experiencing the NFT space is amazing, because like Gavin mentioned also, and you mentioned also, these brands having intimacy with the community hasn't always been available, and we see brands now in the beverage space like Budweiser. Wow, they're hitting a string with the younger audience. I'm not sure if you knew that, and they have an opportunity to do that here in the NFT space, and I find that something that I'm highly interested in. And just going back to the question I had earlier, I'm not sure if it's on your radar to even have even more masses adopt this space. I know that you're looking to be the #1 distiller within the NFT space, but is there any thought of allowing investors like myself? I invest into index funds. Are you guys looking into fractionalization anyway, looking to start a fund and purchase your own cask in any way?
Yeah, so we definitely facilitate fractionalization, and we think that those two things are going to be within the pipeline. We had one of our products that we sold a barrel of Penfolds that's going to be converted into 300 bottles, and we had a community of wine connoisseurs purchase it in Miami. And then we also had a product for Hennessy go for $226,000, and it was actually purchased by a crypto community.
Wow.
So again, while we don't facilitate the indexes or the fractionalizations on site, it is still something that consumers can do whether they join their own community and they petition for their communities to buy it, or if they join, a certain index fund and are looking into it. For us, it's definitely something that we're looking into. But again, right now we're really focused on, onboarding the best brands, getting the best products, and then kind of facilitating what the consumers and our own community is looking for. Once we build that out, that's when we want to start going into the fractionalization, the indexes, the IRL events, not only being able to buy stuff on drops, but also having physical locations that people could come and see it, because BlockBar is the concept of bridging physical and digital. So it only would make sense that we would also have physical as well.
You're absolutely. And just to touch on that aspect of it, building at the digital front, we hear the word metaverse being thrown around a lot. And we know that it's kind of tailored for every single project. Is there an idea of what the metaverse means to you? Is that term even utilized within BlockBar at all?
No, of course. Well, look, first of all, me personally, I'm very hesitant to get into any of the concepts without having a real reason and a real purpose and a real meaning for it. So for example, initially when we were toying around with the idea of entering into the NFT space, we initially piloted fragrance and we had piloted fashion. And we just came to this roadblock where, what is the utility of this NFT? Why can't I just buy this product as a physical product, or why can't I just buy a digital version online? What is the utility of the actual NFT and the blockchain technology that's being used? And then ultimately, that's why we landed on wine and spirits. And I think that we're taking the same approach to the metaverse, where, and I don't want to take away from what any other company is doing, but I think that many individuals and many companies and many people are entering into the metaverse because they view it as an opportunity to make headlines and in the marketing campaign. And if you really look at the meaningful numbers of the users that are active in the metaverse, it's not as high as people necessarily think. So I think that once the metaverse is a little bit more established, and we can identify an actual purpose and a reason for us to enter, then we will. So right now we are toying around with a few different ideas, but we haven't actioned anything directly into any of the metaverses.
Understood. Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious what that term meant to you, because yeah, absolutely, I agree with you that we're light years away from where we need to be in terms of the metaverse.
Well, the term for me, I think it is a general concept, meaning I think that people are looking at specific metaverses when the metaverse itself is infinite. There could be an infinite number of different metaverses where people are meeting. Technically, you and I are meeting in the metaverse right now. Right. I think that space will eventually be built out a little bit more. But again, I think that it's kind of an all-encompassing term that people are kind of throwing around right now. But like you said, I think that the dust is going to settle. The true use case of metaverse projects are going to be founded now and then built out. And I think that that's going to provide a lot more opportunity for brands and consumers to enter in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
What does the term mean to you, Joe?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking everyone I'm interviewing. I'm interviewing so many people. And Gary Vee made a good statement that he goes, yeah, exactly. It's really native to the project itself and that we're really far away. And what he said was Meta is a North Star in terms of technology. So whatever Meta does, a lot of people will follow suit. But it's such a vast space that he's not really involved in it himself. And he's kind of the NFT king in terms of wine and social media. And I'm very surprised that he hasn't started something like a BlockBar. Have you guys been in talks? Because he's such a big influencer in the space in terms of wine, not high-end spirits. So question for you, Sam, do you have a favorite liquor or a favorite partnership, a drop that you had? I noticed I'm asking you to pick your favorite kid here, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's basically asking me to pick my favorite kid. I mean, personally, my favorite, I like to drink bourbon. But if you were asking me what the favorite release that we've done, I always say that the release that we have right now is my favorite release, kind of like a parent says about one of their kids. But usually my drink of choice is probably a bourbon. What about you?
Me is wine. And my friends love whiskey. And that's why I bought him the Glenfiddich, because his whole bar is just full of whiskey. And then you go into his office, there's just more whiskey everywhere. And so for right now, it's wine. Second from that, I would say that it would be probably whiskey. Yeah, the old fashioned. I lived in New York, New Jersey for 13 years. So a lot of whiskey bars there. Not too many out this way. I'm in the Bay Area right now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there's some will pop up. I think that this entire asset class is really becoming more and more popular for people our age. And again, I've never met Gary Vee himself, but we were on the same Twitter Spaces one time, and we had a little back and forth one time, which was a great back and forth. He's, like you said, a true visionary and a pioneer in the space. But I think one thing that I mentioned there, and I'll mention here also, specifically the way that I view it with BlockBar and the way that I view what Gary Vee is doing in the space also, is right now it's really about expanding the piece of the pie. It's not about fighting for a bigger piece of the current pie, where in wine and spirits and also in crypto, it's so underutilized right now, and people, there's not enough people that have been introduced into the space yet. So I think that the name of the game is about adoption, where rising tide lifts all boats, where we have to make it very easy for consumers to get onboarded into the world of Web3, and we have to make it very easy for consumers to get onboarded into the world of wine and spirits. And that's what really BlockBar does, where we make wine and spirits approachable for the younger demographic, and we make NFTs digestible for the older demographic, because this is one of the only asset classes that, you know, Gen Z, millennials, and boomers alike can all understand, because you're buying an NFT directly from a luxury brand. It's an exclusive product that can't be found anywhere else. The NFT serves an actual purpose, and then at any point you can exchange the NFT for the physical product. So I think that that is a very useful way for people to understand the concept. And once they get onboarded and start using, that's when they can expand into different, you know, non-asset backed NFTs or different crypto projects or other blockchain use cases. It's just about shining the light on the use cases, because the utility is so great and underutilized right now.
Absolutely. And you bring up some points there to onboard more people. And the last two questions before I let you go, I know we're running up on time here.
No, I got time, don't worry.
Yeah, is the onboarding. Is a lot of people mention, my friend runs a podcast called Marketing in the Metaverse, and the number one hurdle he says is that UI, user interface on onboarding is tough, because people got to onboard to crypto and then to NFT, which is another aspect, right? So just curious to see what progress you will make in the space on terms of on-ramp, because I know you can purchase a credit card on drops, but you cannot purchase it on the secondary market. Is that something in the works, or is there some a hurdle there that you can't overcome for having credit card access to both, or a bank account to both?
No. It's definitely something that we're already working on right now. Our devs are working tirelessly on it. And again, you know, for me, it was very easy to sit back and say, you know, I want credit card to work for all transactions. But once you jump into the nitty gritty, because the regulatory landscape is still so new, and also some credit card processors just refuse to work with us, or not just with us, with any Web3 project. When they hear about it, it's difficult to kind of create a roadmap and make those projects come to fruition. But like you said, it was huge progress for us to allow for wire transfers and credit cards on primary sales. And right now we're in the works of making credit cards available on secondary sales, which will make it a lot easier. And then again, this regulatory landscape is so new that every couple of months, there's new companies that come out and new regulations that come out that make things either a little bit easier or a little bit harder. But because it's so unknown right now, sometimes it's difficult to build on the unknown. But as everything is settling, it's going to be a lot easier for us to onboard a lot of these new projects and facilitate a lot of these transactions that we want to do.
Right. Yeah, that's a good and bad thing, because that'll just make me spend a little bit more.
We want to make it easier. Like our goal is basically, if a consumer hears about a product, they can't find it anywhere else. They know the company, they like the product. They come into BlockBar, they create a username, they buy the product with credit card, crypto, wire transfer, and then immediately they are able to redeem that product, in which case it's a regular e-commerce platform, or they can opt into, you know, holding it and storing it and then redeeming it whenever they want. So that's the goal. The goal is to make it as seamless as e-commerce. But again, because the infrastructure isn't necessarily there yet, these things take a little bit of time.
Right. Absolutely. We understand. Yeah. And I'll keep the viewers updated to when, you know, the credit card changes. I'm sure you guys have a notice as well. A last question for you here. As we see this, well, as I see it as an asset class, and I think you do as well. A lot of my friends, when I sent this immediately to tens of people that I thought should immediately buy some liquor, high-end liquor. And their questions to me, which I probed to you, is, we know there's safeguards in place that is insured. And right now in the crypto world, we're going through a crisis of states where, you know, there's exchanges getting liquidated. They're just over leveraged. I don't imagine to be that the case for BlockBar because it's an asset one of one per purchase. I think the question that they asked is just in a 10-year time frame. If let's say something happens to BlockBar, how do they get their assurances of, let's say they build up a portfolio of $1 million worth of high-end liquor, and it's there, it's in Singapore. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, the number one assurance, of course, that the product is real is the fact that we work directly with the brands,
right.
Meaning none of the products that's going to be available on our platform comes from distributors, collectors, or retailers. Secondly, the reason we actually put our facility in Singapore to start is because, and I'm sure you know this, Singapore is one of the safest countries in the world.
Yep.
So when we realized that we're going to be storing millions of dollars of product, we had to put we had to put it in the safest location imaginable. So that's kind of why we started with Singapore. We're opening up different facilities depending on the different products, because certain products are from certain regions and people don't necessarily want the product leaving the region. Then thirdly, which was one of the difficult things, we actually got insurance for the physical product and the digital product. So both of those things are completely insured. In terms of safeguarding your crypto, we have a service where we store your private keys for you. So if you sign up with an email through Fireblocks, which is the largest custodial digital asset provider in the world, we actually create a wallet for you, store the private key for you, and then everything is safeguarded. And then lastly on that question, because we actually get it asked a lot, Joe, we have an insurance policy in place that in the event anything happens to BlockBar, we make all of the products available to ship to you or for pickup. And it's something that we always add. We're adding a lot of these features into our FAQs because it is something that people usually ask. So just a couple of days ago, we updated our FAQ into some of the permissions and some of the liability and some of the storage concerns that people had. The last thing that we have to update, which we'll do shortly, and I'll definitely keep you posted, is what happens in the event that BlockBar goes out, because those products are still owned by the consumers. But in the event that does happen, the products are either shipped to the consumer or made available for the consumer to come and pick up.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And it's great to hear that you're going to update on FAQs. To Gavin's point, most of this high-end liquor, at least in my opinion, the higher ends would not be consumed. There'll be more as an investment class. And as I invest into syndicates and things like that, there's clauses, there's insurance policies for instances like this, because there's precedent. This has happened before to many companies. And right now we see this happening real time to so many exchanges. So it's definitely great to hear that you guys are, taking some proactive approaches there.
Yeah, and also, like I said, the number one safeguard is the fact that we work directly with the brands. So the brands consider ourselves a partner. So for example, when we have all of these Glenfiddich products, Glenfiddich doesn't want anything to happen to BlockBar because then it would ruin the experience for their consumers also. And that's why this level of transparency makes it a little bit better, because in the event that something happens, because you can't reduce risk down to zero. And what we do at BlockBar is we reduce it as close to zero as possible. But in the event that something does happen, that number one, there's insurance, and number two, the brand knows exactly who you are. So if you wanted to be made whole again by the brand, there's that direct channel of communication between brand and consumer, so that if something did happen, you're in a position to be made whole directly from the brand. Whereas if something happened when you just bought something from a liquor store, like your wine, imagine trying to get in contact directly with the winery saying X, Y, and Z happened. I want this and that to happen. It's a little bit more difficult because there wasn't that level of transparency on both sides.
Yeah. No, just I'm getting excited hearing that. At least for me, just experiencing that connection with the brands. I'm actually flying out in a few days to go to a NBA conference of sorts, and then the NFT company, NBA Top Shot, will be there and kind of activating in real life experiences. I imagine hopefully you guys might do the same one day where we get to go there and you guys represent and we can get in touch with the brands and talk to them. And so that's super exciting to hear. Wow. So we've covered a lot, Sam. I'm sure there's a lot more going on. I'll be sure to put all your links down below. I know there's a drop right now live that we could bid on. We didn't have much time to cover it, but if you want to talk about it really quickly, we can definitely do that.
No, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The drop this week, I think, is very interesting, and I think that you'll hear about the story if you go on the website. But one of the cool things about it is that the distillery no longer exists, which is pretty unique. Meaning, Gavin was saying that certain products are limited. The brand is limited because the distillery has been closed. So it's what's called a ghost distillery. So I think that that's kind of what's driving the very high price point. But we have a few scheduled drops this month, Joe. So I think that you should keep your eyes open because there's definitely some interesting ones that are coming out.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah, and the drop that you're talking about, I looked it up, and that distillery, that whiskey jumped 300% in a small period of time. So that's super exciting that you guys got a bottle of that for the community here. Awesome. And if you have any good partnerships, they want to sponsor a bachelor party. I'm having one end of this year. I mean, end of this month. I'm sorry.
You told me you're a wine drinker and a whiskey drinker, so I'll keep on the lookout for you.
I'm all joking, but the amount of money that I'm going to spend at a bachelor party, I mean, just people spending monies on bottles is insane at these events.
Where are you going for your bachelor party?
Unfortunately, to say I'm going to Vegas, keep it simple, don't have to plan anything. Everyone can just do what they want, and bottles there are just absolutely insane. So it probably makes more sense for me to spend my money before I even get there. So that Patron doesn't sound so expensive anymore, is what I'm saying. The chairman's Patron on BlockBar, which there's only 4 left. I need to go grab one.
Yeah. Well, I would also, just to give you a sneak peek, I would maybe wait a couple of days because we have another exciting announcement coming with Patron.
Okay, we'll do. All right. Wow, that's super exciting. It's been a pleasure having you, Sam. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to having you back here as you activate more utility in real life events. It'll be super exciting to catch up again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having us. And yeah, always available. Thanks for setting this up, Joe.